The night was thick with silence at St. Michael Hospital, except for the rhythmic beeping of life support machines. Mercy, a young nurse with a heart of gold, walked through the eerily quiet hallway. Something about this night felt wrong. Then she heard it. A faint cry from room 306, the one that was supposed to be empty. She hesitated before stepping in, her pulse racing. The bed was neatly arranged, but the sound persisted. Mercy's breath caught as she noticed a trail of blood leading to the closet. She slowly reached for the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a patient, a frail old man with terror in his eyes, gagged and bound with 4 tubes. His body was covered in bruises. Mercy gasped, her hands trembling. Suddenly, a shadow moved behind her. A cold hand gripped her shoulder. "You shouldn't be here," whispered a voice. Spinning around, she came face to face with Nurse Agnes, the hospital's head nurse. Agnes smiled, a cold, unnatural grin that sent shivers down Mercy's spine. Mercy swallowed hard. "Why is he in there?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nurse Agnes chuckled, her gaze sharp as a scalpel. "Some patients need special care," she said. "Go home, Mercy. You've had a long night." But Mercy couldn't unsee the horror in the old man's eyes. As she left the room, the hospital walls seemed to close in on her. A sense of unease crept through her veins. What was Agnes hiding? Mercy knew one thing: she couldn't ignore this. She had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. Hello, please share, like, comment on this story and subscribe to our YouTube channel to enable us grow. And thanks for showing us your support for this channel. Also hit the notification bell to get notified when a new video drops. God bless you. The next morning, Mercy rushed to room 306. But the bed was empty. No blood, no patient, nothing. It was as if the man had never existed. She checked the records. No admissions under that description. Panic set in. She confronted Agnes, but the head nurse only smirked. "You must be overworked, dear," she said. "Maybe you should take some time off." Mercy clenched her fists. She wasn't imagining this. Someone was covering up something dark, and she was determined to uncover it. Determined, Mercy sneaked into the hospital archives that night. She sifted through patient records, hoping for a clue. Her fingers brushed against a worn-out file labeled "Deceased Patients," unauthorized list. Opening it, she froze. The old man's picture stared back at her. His name, Edward Malcolm, died 2 days ago. Her heart pounded. He was alive last night. Then she noticed a pattern. Dozens of patients marked dead before they actually were. All under Agnes' care. As Mercy exited the archive room, a chill ran down her spine. Whispers. Faint but unmistakable. She turned, but the hallway was empty. "Help us!" a voice seemed to murmur. The walls themselves felt alive with suffering. Then something moved in the corner of her eye. A figure, pale and gaunt, watching her. When she blinked, it was gone. Her breath quickened. She wasn't just uncovering a conspiracy. She was stepping into something much darker. Determined to uncover the truth, Mercy followed a hunch to the hospital's abandoned West Wing. Rumors said it had been closed for years, but something told her Agnes had been using it. The air smelled stale, filled with the scent of decaying antiseptic. She tried the door, it was locked. But just as she turned away, she heard shuffling from the other side. Then a faint knock. 3 slow taps. Someone or something was inside. Mercy found another way in through an old maintenance corridor leading to the basement. As she descended the creaky stairs, her heartbeat pounded in her ears. The air was thick with something rotten. What she saw made her stomach drop. Rows of metal gurneys, each holding lifeless patients covered in sheets, except for one. A woman, barely breathing, her lips moving in a silent plea for help. Mercy rushed to her side, but before she could react, a shadow moved behind her. A sharp pain exploded at the back of her head, and everything went black. Mercy woke up bound to a chair. Her head throbbed. Across from her sat Nurse Agnes, her cold smile unwavering. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing, Mercy," she said, adjusting her gloves. "I had such high hopes for you." Agnes leaned in close. "You're smart, but you don't understand. This hospital, it's not what you think. Some patients are better off gone." She reached for a syringe filled with a thick, black liquid. "But don't worry. You won't feel a thing." Panic surged through Mercy. She twisted her wrists, feeling the rope burn against her skin. Agnes raised the syringe, but at that moment, a loud bang echoed through the hall. Someone or something was coming. Agnes cursed and turned to check the noise. Mercy seized her chance, using all her strength to break free. She kicked over a metal tray, sending instruments clattering to the floor. She grabbed a scalpel, slashed her bindings, and bolted toward the door. As Mercy fled down the hallway, the hospital seemed different. The walls pulsed, the floor shifted beneath her feet. Then she saw them, ghostly figures of patients who had vanished, their faces twisted in agony. One reached for her, whispering, "Stop her before more die." Mercy stumbled back, her breath coming in gasps. This wasn't just murder. Something supernatural was at play. Mercy found herself in the administrator's office. She frantically searched the filing cabinets, hoping to find proof of Agnes' crimes. Finally, she found a folder labeled Project Euthanize. The files contained patient names, dozens of them marked expired before their actual death dates. And at the bottom a chilling note, approved by Nurse Agnes. Executions to continue. Mercy ran to Dr. Caldwell, the hospital's chief doctor, breathless as she handed him the file. "You have to see this. Agnes is killing patients." But Dr. Caldwell only sighed. "I know," he said. Mercy's blood ran cold. He walked to his desk, pulling out a cigarette. "We're saving the hospital, keeping it funded. Some patients are liabilities." His eyes darkened. "You should have stayed quiet, Mercy." Mercy bolted before Caldwell could stop her. Footsteps pounded behind her. Guards, nurses, maybe even Agnes herself. She sprinted through the halls, ducking into a supply closet. Her hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone. She had to get proof. Had to get out. But before she could dial, the doorknob twisted. Someone was outside, waiting. Mercy made it to the hospital's security room. She found footage. Agnes injecting patients, doctors falsifying death records. Proof. But before she could take it, a sickening smell filled the air. Burning paper. She ran to the records room just in time to see Agnes tossing files into a barrel of fire. "Too late," she sneered. "No proof, no case." Mercy collapsed in despair. Agnes had covered her tracks. But then a whisper. "Not all is lost." She turned and gasped. The old man from room 306 stood before her, his ghostly form flickering. He pointed toward an air vent. The last files. Hidden there. His form began to fade. Mercy dashed toward the vent, yanking it open. Inside, a dusty folder lay waiting. The final evidence. The ghosts of St. Michael weren't just victims. They were fighting back. Mercy pulled the folder from the air vent, her hands shaking. Inside were photos. Patients, all dead under mysterious circumstances, all signed off by Agnes. But then her eyes widened. The last page held something unexpected. A letter from the hospital director. It detailed an underground experiment, a project designed to test new sedatives on terminal patients, secretly funded by pharmaceutical companies. Agnes wasn't just a murderer. She was part of a much larger conspiracy. And the hospital itself had been covering it up. Determined to expose the truth, Mercy rushed toward the main floor. But before she could reach the exit, a voice stopped her. "Going somewhere, dear." Agnes emerged from the darkness, her face calm, her hands clasping a syringe filled with a murky liquid. "You should have left it alone," Agnes said, stepping closer. "But now, you leave me no choice." Mercy took a step back, her heart hammering. Then, without warning, Agnes lunged. The needle gleamed under the flickering lights as it hurtled toward Mercy's neck. Mercy dodged at the last second, slamming her elbow into Agnes' ribs. The syringe clattered to the floor. Agnes snarled, grabbing Mercy by the throat, squeezing with terrifying strength. "No one will believe you," she hissed. Gasping for air, Mercy reached for the syringe and drove it into Agnes' thigh. The older nurse's eyes widened in shock as the drug entered her system. She stumbled back, slurring, "You little brat," before collapsing. The same poison she had used on her patients had now claimed her. The police arrived minutes later. Mercy, bruised and shaken, handed them the files she had recovered. "She's been killing patients for years," she said. "And the hospital helped cover it up." The officers reviewed the documents, their faces growing grim. The hospital's dark secrets had finally come to light. Agnes was taken away in an ambulance, unconscious but alive. The hospital's board members were arrested, and the families of the victims finally received justice. Weeks later, St. Michael Hospital was under new management, the corrupt officials gone. Mercy stood at the entrance, watching the morning sun rise. She had fought against unimaginable evil and won. But she knew the scars would never fully fade. As she turned to leave, a cold breeze brushed past her. She looked back and just for a moment saw them, the spirits of the lost patients, standing in the hallway, smiling. "Silent thank you." Mercy smiled back, knowing that while the past could never be erased, justice had finally been served. This story is a mix of psychological thriller, horror, and supernatural elements, filled with suspense and a powerful moral lesson. Courage and truth can overcome even the darkest of evils. To see how this story unfolds, like, share and subscribe to the channel, and right where you are watching from, only on African Tales by DeFloras. Thank you.